Federation as their Education Policy Director. We hope that each of you has benefited from the many conversations throughout the last 2 days. More importantly, we look forward to staying connected, even if it's virtually, for the next few months to come, as we keep working on policy and program priorities that uplift our families and students. This morning, one of my favorite poets, Morgan Harper Nichols, spoke to one of my core values that has been amplified during these times. I would like to share some of her words as we start our sessions today, with the hope that these remarks will bring you closer together. I am not convinced that unity is a matter of setting our differences aside. I think unity is a matter of bringing our raw ingredients to the kitchen table, and at that kitchen table, we will all look at our ingredients and ask each other this question: what ingredients do we need to keep so that everyone can eat? Because the one thing we all have in common is that we all need nourishment so that we can continue to be. And that nourishment comes realizing we are joined together. At a distance, it may seem that our differences will keep you from knowing me and me from knowing you. But around the kitchen table, the message of our collective needs gets through. Let us come around. Let the water boil on the stove. Let us throw in and stir and never stop until everyone is fed. I invite everyone to cultivate unity as we continue the work ahead. May we create transformative spaces that support our students and families to have their necessities met. We thank you for joining us today as we finalize our agenda and address topics related to immigration, supporting undocumented students, meet members of a LEAD coalition, and a fireside chat centering supports for mental health. It is now my pleasure to present a special message from an individual that embodies community building and has brought together many stakeholders across the state to think about innovative ways to address our current challenges. Please join me as we hear a special message from Dr. Pedro Antonio Noguera, Dean of the Rossier School of Education at University of Southern California. Thank you.
Buenos dias, Hispanic Federation. I'm sorry that I couldn't have joined you in person or directly at the time of the conference due to other commitments, but I'm happy I'm able to record this message. Let me start by saying that the pandemic has exacerbated the equity that we were already facing in our schools and in our country. As we know, Hispanic people have been disproportionately impacted by this virus because so many of us are essential workers, and we're bringing that virus home to our families, and so the death count is up, the number of us who are sick is up, but it's also having an impact on the economy, as we know, and many of our people are out of work and facing with housing insecurity and food and other things that we need. So I want to acknowledge those hardships and then say that our children are hurting too. All children are hurting, but in many Hispanic households, we don't have internet access, we don't have the screen devices, we don't have the conditions kids need for teaching and learning. So let's just acknowledge this is a mess, and it's not good, and it's taking a toll. And so I do want you to know that as an educator who's worked on these issues for many years, I'm very familiar with the challenges facing our families. I'm working with school leaders and superintendents around the countries to try to think about innovative ways that we can address these. There are, again, no easy answers. In the absence of federal leadership, and I have to say, the federal government has not provided clear guidance on how to open schools and safely, and how to hasn't taken the leadership on expanding access to virtual learning. It really does fall on the backs of local school districts and states to provide some leadership. Fortunately, there have been districts that have done that. I'm impressed with my friend Richard Carranza in New York City, Austin Buton in Los Angeles, who've really gone out of the way to make sure that kids have access to the internet and can participate in online learning. Eventually, we're going to get through this, though. And my message to you is to start thinking now about how things could be better when schools reopen. One of the things we know is that we've been relying on parents like never before during this period. We need to keep going. Children need to know that their parents are concerned. Our kids do better when their parents are involved. So let's continue to talk to parents about the importance of staying involved with their children. Let's also continue to stay vigilant about what's happening in schools. Latino parents have to know what's going on with their kids. They have to know what courses they're taking. They have to know their teachers. They have to know whether or not they're on track to college. If we're not vigilant, too often our kids slip right through the cracks. So I want to encourage you, even if you don't have children, stay involved with your schools, because public education is a key resource for our future, and we have to make sure our kids' needs are being met. But beyond that, we have to make sure that our kids are getting prepared for such an uncertain future, which means they need an education that provides them with the strong foundation in literacy and math and science, so that they will be able to get jobs of the future, and that they will be able to have access to college. So we need to make sure that state and federal governments continue to put the resources in. So many parents now are suffering because they have no childcare. We need to make sure that universal preschool is something that every state adopts. So there are real measures and real lessons we should learn from this period that we should take away. So I want to encourage all of you out there to stay vigilant in your community, stay active. Education really is the key to a better life, key to our democracy, key to a stronger and more sustainable future. So I want to encourage you to not allow education to become a back burner issue. We know that during this campaign, it's barely been mentioned by the two major candidates. But we know that education is in some ways even more important than this election. Because if you're concerned about climate change, and we all should be, then we need to make sure that these children right now are being prepared, are getting the kind of education that will allow them to confront the future, not with fear, but with courage and with insights and problem-solving ability, so they will figure out how to solve the problems they've inherited from this generation. It's a tall order, but I think we're up to it. Latinos in this country are the backbone of this country. We do the work. We're the ones who make it happen. We need to make sure that our children get the education they need and deserve, so they will be able to build a better future. Gracias para todo, and I wish you all the very best. Adelante.
Good afternoon to all. Thank you again for joining us for our third day of the Hispanic Education Summit. We would love to invite everyone to join us for our first panel discussion kicking off right now at 1:10 p.m., Immigrant Communities and Trauma. We hope that you can exit this room to then join the other virtual room, again titled Immigrant Communities and Trauma, Addressing the Disproportionate Challenges Latinos Families